And now to a story you witnessed only here on BNC Live. It was actually brought to you live. Georgia State Representative Hank Johnson among 10 demonstrators arrested by U.S. Capitol Police yesterday, all over the battle involving protecting your right to vote. The protest led by black men happened Thursday on Capitol Hill. That's where we find our D.C. correspondent, Botha Yaman.
Behind me, you can see the Capitol. Now, the protest happened on the other side of the building. The arrest took place toward the end of the event, which lasted about a few hours. Voting rights advocates participated in a protest called Senate in Action on Voting Rights Legislation. Representative Johnson can be seen in the video with his hands restrained while chanting. He's one of 10 people arrested by Capitol Police for unlawfully demonstrating outside of the Hart Senate office building. They were charged with crowding and obstructing. The protest, involving about 50 black men, called on Congress to end the filibuster and pass the For the People Act. The comprehensive bill would expand voting rights and create national standards that would help override the states that are restricting voter access. But the measure remains stonewalled in the Senate.
It may not always be in the media, but brothers do stand up. Right. Brothers do speak up.
That's right.
Brothers do have each other's back.
That's right.
And when we see someone like the Honorable Sheila Jackson Lee fighting and sacrificing for us, we say that we got her back.
I'm honored to be here with these courageous men and with the courageous women who stood last week and stood today to demonstrate our tenacity, to demonstrate that we aren't going anywhere, that on this day, at this time, such as now, we will not retreat.
That's right.
We will not turn around.
That's
we will not be discouraged.
That's right.
So it means ending the filibuster.
That's
because a racist Jim Crow legacy policy is not going to be the thing I could go out to in 2022 and explain to people. That is why we didn't pass criminal justice reform. That is why we didn't put money in your pocket that was needed. That is why we did not move issues forward. So as much as we want to talk about the Republicans standing in the way,
talk about it.
I remember being in Senator Schumer's office and he told me all the policies that I wanted when I was meeting with him a couple of years ago. I needed Leader Schumer to accomplish.
All right.
Well, we got Leader Schumer.
We got him.
And now we need to accomplish the policies necessary. And that starts with ensuring that we do not lose our ability to express our will for a better future through the vote. That is the work forward. That is how we translate presence to power.
Now, this comes about a week after black women marched on the Hill and also were arrested. In Washington, D.C., Botha Yaman for BNC.
Black voters, they matter here. 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 Black lives, they matter here.
That was brought to you live yesterday on BNC Live. Now, also among the arrested, co-founder of Black Votes Matter, Cliff Albright. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. How are you after what we saw yesterday?
Well, I'm fired up. Let me start by thanking you and the entire BNC team for, like you said, covering it live and from start to finish. But yeah, I'm fired up. You know, all the other 9 brothers that were arrested are fired up. Everybody that attended, including the sisters that were there to support us, the same way that there were some brothers out there last week supporting the sisters. We're all fired up because at the end of the day, it's this kind of action which unfortunately is what it's going to take in order to get the voting rights that we deserve. We don't want to be in this position where we have to go back to 1965 tactics and the same things that we had to do to get the Voting Rights Act in 1965. But unfortunately, in order to defeat this filibuster and get this legislation that we need, and that's both the For the People Act as well as the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, if we need to be in the street every day, that's what we're going to do. If we need to have somebody getting arrested every day, that's what we're going to do. We're that committed to getting the voting rights that we deserve and we've been fighting for decades and in fact centuries.
All right, Cliff, well, with that fire in your belly now, what's next?
I mean, we're taking it into next week. We got some more actions coming up. We got, and we working on this with a lot of other organizations. The Poor People's Campaign has been doing their Moral Monday actions on every Monday, so they'll be having another action on this coming Monday. We'll be back out there on Wednesday, along with Sister Melanie Campbell, who helped organize the event last week where Representative Joyce Beatty got arrested. Melanie and the crew and the sisters will be back out there on Wednesday, and brothers will be back out there supporting, because we're all united on this, right? We don't want to just have one day for sisters and one day for brothers. We're all going to be out there on Wednesday, and we are encouraging other groups to get involved. We want every day that there's a group that's taking the lead. We want to see, there are veterans groups that are very passionate about the voting rights. There are Latinx groups that are very passionate about this battle. We've got enough folks involved in this coalition where every day there could be direct action, civil disobedience taking place, and that's the plan. There's also going to be a major march that we're working on along with the Poor People's Campaign, and literally dozens of organizations taking place in Texas next week. It's a 4-day march that's going to be marching from Georgetown, Texas to Austin, Texas. That's going to be taking place next week as well. So literally, we've got a whole week of actions, and we've got a whole summer of actions that are going to be taking place until we get the voting rights that we're demanding.
And I know, I'm sure, better yet, Congressman John Lewis would be proud of you for what you did yesterday. But I have to ask you now, do you feel better yet that your intended message was properly conveyed yesterday?
Well, we think it was properly conveyed. We just don't know if it's been properly received yet, right? And judging by the comments that President Biden made the other night during his town hall meeting, which were very disappointing, to say the least. That's being gentle. We haven't heard the type of response from the White House that we need to hear. At the end of the day, this bill is sitting in the Senate, right? We know that the House has done its job, although we're glad to see that there are House members that are getting involved in the direct actions. But the House has done its job. We need the Senate to do its job. That includes ending the filibuster or amending it or creating a carve-out for voting rights, which has been called on by Representative Clyburn, right? And so we haven't seen an action from the White House that we need to see, because there are senators, and it's really not just two. It's not just Manchin and Sinema. It's more than that are sitting on the fence, and they're not going to move until we get the president having an LBJ moment where he really leans in and he uses everything that he has at his disposal and sends a clear message that when he says that voting rights are sacred, that he means it. That when he says that voting rights are sacred, that he doesn't have an asterisk at the end of that says, well, but the filibuster is more sacred. So we need him to lean into this and to really demonstrate that he understands that this is the threat that he communicated in his speech last week. If he was serious about those words, then we need him to lean in, use everything he has at his disposal, put some pressure or carrots or sticks on these senators to amend the filibuster or create a carve out. And if he does that, we think that these senators that are kind of sitting on the fence right now will eventually fall in line. But it's going to take everybody getting involved. And again, if it takes direct action and civil disobedience every day, that's what we'll be doing.
Well, Cliff, I want you to stay with us because I want to continue this conversation on voting rights in America. As we can see, it's absolutely in peril at this time. And if you're just joining us, that was exclusive video that you only saw here on BNC. We started recording from start to finish. And now, today, we're discussing the arrest of those 10 voting rights activists, including Georgia Representative Hank Johnson. That's him right there with the glasses and the blue Navy and the Navy suit on, handcuffed. So, yesterday, who blocked the entrance to the Hart Senate building in Washington? The group, demonstrators, included Black Voters Matter, Our Black Party, Color of Change, and others fighting restrictive voting bills and calling for an end to the filibuster. Well, here to continue that conversation is a gentleman who was actually among those arrested, co-founder of Black Votes Matter, Cliff Albright, who found himself in some good trouble, to say the least.
That's right, definitely. In the spirit of John Lewis and so many others who, have a history of getting in good trouble, as Congressman Lewis used to say, when you see something that's wrong, you got to get in the way. You got to get in some trouble, but it's got to be good trouble. And so that's what we were doing yesterday. Again, following the lead of sisters last week, like Melanie Campbell, who kicked it off, and so and that's what it's going to take. It shouldn't take this much just to get voting rights, or it shouldn't take this much just to protect rights that we've had or should have had, going back decades. But that's the situation that we're in right now. And and the brothers yesterday were committed. I really want to shout out. You mentioned Congressman Hank Johnson. As soon as we contacted his office, he was on board, and on board not just to participate in the rally, but on board to go with us to the Senate office building and to participate in the civil disobedience and to get arrested. And so I want to shout that out, because that's the kind of leadership we need from our elected officials. And again, CBC Chair Beatty did the same thing last week. That's the kind of leadership and participation that we need from our elected officials, working hand in hand with activists and all those brothers who I love. I love every one of those brothers that was out there yesterday, including we had representatives from most of the black fraternities, the Alphas, the Omegas, the Kappas, the Sigmas. They all have representatives out there. And so this was really a united front, and this is just the beginning. Again, we're going to be in the streets as long as it takes for us to get the rights that we deserve. And we'll be sending a clear message that we're not going back. We're not going back to Jim Crow, not Jim Crow 1.0 or Jim Crow 2.0. We're not going back.
Well, speaking of leadership, with the stalling of the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and For the People Act in Congress not moving at this current time, do you feel that our current leadership is committed to improving the lives of black people after we secured the vote for them to secure the White House and the Senate?
Yeah, I mean that's the question of the day, right? Black voters in particular risked our lives in the midst of the pandemic. Not just in November in the general election, which put Joe Biden in the White House, but then to come back out in the state of Georgia in January and to give him the majority. It's a 50-50, but we've got the tie-breaking vote in the form of the vice president. So black voters did that. And he said in his acceptance speech, he said, you've always had President Biden that has said that black voters have had his back and he'll have ours. Well, guess what? If you got our back, this is the time that we need to see it. I've said it before. It's like being in a fight and you going up against the crew and you look to your left and to your right and the folks that you thought were on your team aren't there with you, right? So none of this is to excuse the people that we're up against. We know how wrong they are. We know how wrong those that are trying to push this voter suppression, this historic Jim Crow level voter suppression, we know how wrong they are. And so we know how to deal with them. But right now, this message that we're sending is to those people that are supposed to be on our left and on our right and in this fight with us. They're not doing enough. They have not demonstrated a fierce urgency of now. We need the president to lean in more. We need Senate Leader Chuck Schumer to lean in more. We need them to get that caucus together, that majority caucus that we gave them. So we need to see more out of all those elected officials. We need to see state legislators who are willing to do some of the same things that the Texas delegation did. And keep in mind that the Texas delegation that left Texas broke the quorum, that they're sitting in D.C. right now working. I shouldn't say sitting because they are working. There were members of that delegation that spoke at our rally yesterday. So they're working hard, but they've not yet been able to meet with the president. The president has not met with them, even though they've requested it. So again, we need to see at all levels, all of our elected officials that we gave this power to stepping up and showing again the fierce urgency of now that the brothers yesterday showed, that the sisters last week showed, that the Texas delegation has been showing. That's what it's going to take.
Cliff, we are running out of time, unfortunately, but I want to squeeze one more question in, so if you can answer it briefly. Yeah. How do you stay energized? Seriously, I mean, you just see state after GOP state passing these restrictive voting laws. How do you stay energized in the face of all this?
Well, there's not a quick answer, but I'm going to try to give you a really quick answer because there's about 3 different things that are involved in that. One is we know that we stand on some mighty shoulders. And so part of it is just knowing our history of what it is that we've been through and what leaders who have come before us, activists who have come before us have done. The second thing, though, is that you got to be in the right crew. you got to be around some folk who you know can lift you up when you get down. And so I'm so honored and blessed to be able to do this work on a daily basis with folks like my sister comrade Latasha Brown, folks like the brothers that I was out there with yesterday, folks who recognize that even in struggle that we still got to have time for Black joy and Black culture. Those are the kinds of things that let us sustain the level of action that we're in right now.
Well, I am so honored to have interviewed you. I wish you the best of luck in this fight to protect not only your vote, but my vote and the other sisters and brothers out there. Thank you for joining us. Cliff Albright, co-founder of Black Votes Matter.